Welcome back, everyone. Please be seated. How are you feeling right now? Are you still good? Oh, chaka chaka, I love that. All right, so next up, we will transition to another round of panel discussion, speaking about or discussing about leveraging design thinking networks. In this panel, there are a few major design thinking networks being represented. We have the networks consisting of the Global Design Thinking Alliance. We have Sugar Network for Design Innovation. We have the Design Factory Network. We have the Design App Business and SAP App House. So the panelists will later on come on stage and they will also briefly introduce the networks that they are representing before we dive into the discussion about why are these ecosystems important and what is next in the near future. So with that, let me introduce our first panelist up to stage, Professor Dr. Falk Uebernickel, who is the co-founder of Sugar Network, and he is also the Professor of Design Thinking and Innovation at HPI. Please give me a big round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have also in the house with us today, Andreas Hauser, the Senior Vice President of SAP App House, Network and Design at Business. Thank you. Let's give Andreas a big round of applause. We have also with us Professor Ulrich Weinberg, the President of the Global Design Thinking Alliance, and also the Director of HPI School of Design Thinking. Let's give Dr. Ulrich a big round of applause.
Jens, since when do you call me Ulrich? You call me Uli all the time.
On stage. And we are also expecting another panelist with us today. Please help me welcome Professor Dr. Christine Thong. Please, thank you for joining us, Christine. So Christine is the Academic Director of Design Factory Melbourne at Swinburne University of Technology. So let's, again, give them a big round of applause. Thank you for being here. All right, so before we start, I think all of us are a bit curious to know the organization or the networks that you represent. Perhaps let's give that a start and you can share a little bit about what the network you are involved in. So let's start with you, Falk, perhaps.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit more about Sugar. Maybe a little bit of the origin story and the role Sugar plays, maybe also in HPI.
Yeah. Okay, so Sugar basically is a movement of design thinking interested students and universities. And the first idea was spread in 2008 by Professor Larry Leifer at Stanford University. I guess most of you know him very well. And his vision was always that not just Stanford students or some privileged students can access design thinking education on this high level, but he always wanted to see more people joining this club of privileged people. And therefore he said, we should not set up a kind of foundation or something like this, but it needs to become a movement. So something that's self-sustained and that comes from the inner heart of each participant in the network. And he said in 2008, in order to make that happen, we need to have something like a Sugar network. And it took then still another 1-2 years until it became true. When in 2010, the first 4 universities came together and said, okay, let's work on that vision. And we met for the first time in Palo Alto in a Sheraton hotel in a very creepy space, but with a lot of fun and a lot of cool support of design thinking addicted and convinced people. And nowadays, we are a network of over 20 universities representing almost all continents except the African continent so far. We are working on it. And we give students from different disciplines, from different intercultural backgrounds, the possibility to work together on design challenges that are provided by corporate partners. In the pre-COVID setup, we had a corporate funding each year of around $2 million US. Because of COVID, it went down a bit. We are now at roughly 1.5 million, and we use all that money for teaching and also for giving each student team the possibility to really prototype, to test, to go out in the field, to immerse themselves with reality. Yeah. So that's basically it for the moment. I think later we will talk in more detail about it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. You know what? You have chairs there. You can actually have a seat if you feel comfortable.
And a stand-up table to sit is like...
Yeah, I think I...
You stand? All good standing? Okay. All right.
I'm fully okay with it.
Right.
No. May I just
yeah, of course, go
ask, Falk, you were talking about the sugar history, but actually you are representing with the predecessor of the sugar, the longest lasting international network.
Okay, good that you asked that. So Larry Leifer is for sure representing the ME310 network, which was founded in the 1960s or at the end of the 1960s. More than 50 years ago, they started with this...
50.
Yeah, 50, not 15. And we see each other as brother and sister programs. So there's still a lot of collaboration ongoing between the sugar community and also the ME310 community. Yeah.
Right. Well, thanks, Uli, for bringing that up. Let's move on. We are also curious to hear a little bit from Christine. Maybe let's move on to hear from you. So Christine, tell us a little bit more about Design Factory Melbourne. Share with us, what it is and how it all started.
Yes, thank you. And thanks for having me here all the way from the other side of the globe. It's very exciting to be a part of the conference. So Design Factory Melbourne, we're essentially an innovation lab in a university and part of a network of design factories around the globe. So really, it's a set of shared values, so passion-based co-creation that brings us all together. And Aalto University is really the originator of the network. So 15 plus years ago, they started working on that concept, and the network really emerged about 10 years ago when there was enough other design factories around the globe. There was 3 or 4 of us that were sort of experimenting in different locations and different continents. And we went, hey, let's actually keep going, expanding, and seeing who else wants to take this same passion-based co-creation approach to doing innovation in universities. So I think it's really interesting because it's creating the conditions for doing design thinking. So we know the process is really important. We know the mindset is really important. We know the spaces and the tools are important. And how we share these values and the way that we facilitate people coming together, facilitated serendipity, is also quite key in design factories. It's really these shared values that bring us all together as networks, because we have all sorts of different types of design factories. We don't all look like Design Factory Melbourne looks like. We do a lot of student programs. We're really fortunate to also be part of the Sugar Network, so get to work with wonderful people like Falk. But there's a design factory at CERN where there's the Large Hadron Collider that's smashing particles together to understand how the universe works. Now, that design factory has a very different flavour of innovation activities, but we all have very similar values. So we're very lucky, I think, to be able to be inspired and learn from one another as a network.
So who else are involved in it?
Yeah, I think compared to the Design Factory Network and also Sugar ME310, we're kind of the youngest kid on the block, and even also compared to the designer business, I think you were more than 5 years on the road. Yeah, the Global Design Thinking Alliance is celebrating the 5th anniversary this year. Actually, we are doing this in Cape Town at the Decon Festival in October, but we can celebrate it here also as well, 5 years. And it was born, I don't know who was attending the Decon Festival 2017. For all of you who were attending, you might might recognize that we try to simulate half of the circus tent here with that environment. 2017, we had full circus, the full circle here. And in that circle, we thought it would be a good idea, since there were about 1,000 people from all over the world working with design thinking, and we thought it would be a good idea to have a more general alliance of the academic institutions. And so we had 10 people putting their feet in the middle and saying, yeah, well, let's give it a start. And there was already, I think we had 5 continents already at the founding moment involved. And now GDTA has about 25 members. We are moving towards 30 now. And it's mostly academic institutions. And the idea is to, on one hand, to further develop design thinking in general, to think about it, to foster also research activities globally. Then we have a yearly conference, and the yearly conference is this year also in Cape Town. It's a 3-day Decon Festival. First time that we do the Decon Festival not in Potsdam, we do it in Cape Town. And so that we're using that as our yearly conference, but we do it actually yearly, and usually we do it at, where's Joanne? At Joanne's place in New York, and celebrate there for 2 days design thinking. And we have a monthly activity, the spotlight session, where we try to bring together the community globally online in a virtual event. That works also. That was coming up during the pandemic, where we found out we can meet more often than once a year, even if it's because we don't have to travel anymore. And yeah, so and we do something which I'm really proud of, especially this year, the Global Design Thinking Workshop, which started as a Global Design Thinking Week here. And now we have the Global Design Thinking Challenge. And Christine Niewerner, yesterday you kicked it off with the Siemens Foundation with a special, it's not a week anymore, it's a 4-week period now. And we are focusing on bringing design thinking to schools on a global level, and try to activate the whole Global Design Thinking Alliance to help us, to support us with that. And Sherif, there's Sherif, and yeah, he's outside. So I'm really looking forward to the outcome at the next 4 weeks. So that is about the GDTA.
Thank you. All right, lastly, Andreas, could you share a little bit about SAP App House? You know, again, how it started, maybe how it evolved already by now, and if there is a relationship with design at business or what?
Definitely. You know, I had the pleasure to be part of the design thinking journey at SAP from the beginning on. I still remember when Hasso was on stage at Sapphire saying, "We now do design thinking." And then we asked him why he did it, and he said, "You know what? When I founded a company, I was a developer sitting beside the user and was iterating. It was not called design thinking, and we unlearned as a company, because we globalized, we specialized in roles, 50, 60,000 employees. We don't work with our customers and users anymore. This was the root cause why we started. Then we started getting this into the development organization. We started getting into the field organization, consulting. We trained also thousands of people in design thinking. And I think it's now part of our DNA. Now the App House comes in, and we learned that although if we do everything correct with building our software, 50 to 70% of the screens that our users use are not SAP screens. They are built by 20,000 partners, and we have 450,000 customers worldwide who have IT organizations up to 2,000-3,000 people who build with our technology user interfaces. And this is where now the App House comes in. What we do, we humanize businesses through design and make innovation real. And I think this making innovation real is really core, because it's all about impact. Honestly, I don't talk too much about design thinking. When I talk about it, I talk about the impact, the outcome. Customer no learning for employees excited, solving problems with technology, but starting with people. And therefore, we established a human-centered approach for innovation where we combine design thinking methods, design doing, and enterprise architecture thinking, because it's all about making innovation real at the end. And I think yesterday was a little bit also thousands of people trained. And honestly, this was not such a journey for SAP, not at all. Lots of ups and downs. And I tell you, one of the biggest mistakes that we made. We trained 10, 15,000 people in our field organization, salespeople, in 3 hours on design thinking. Everybody excited, doing workshops, trading post-its, selling our solution. Nothing happens. now what happened? But this created also a bad reputation on design thinking. Yeah, that means now customers said, okay, cool, well, it was a cool day, but now what? And what we do with the App House is really end-to-end, and focusing on that. Now, come to the App House network. Now, I have 5 locations that I'm responsible for, still a small team in Seoul, in Heidelberg, Berlin, Palo Alto, New York, and I was thinking about how can I scale this? And then we started with a franchising model. And the franchising model, there are 20,000 partners, and we have some of them handpicked. And there are some of them have the same DNA. They say, we have to start with people. Yeah? We have to make innovation real. They have the culture of innovation, having a creative space. And this is the franchising model is pretty simple. They have to use human-centered approach for innovation. It's somehow the brand, but it's just a process. But then it's about the people. They need to have a certain amount of design thinking and design doing skills. They need to have a creative space, virtual, physical, but also now we get also to a hybrid collaboration. Leadership is an element, and technology. These are, from our point of view, the 5 elements to build up a culture of innovation. And now these partners, we have now 17 from China to Melbourne to UK to all over, and these are in the own companies. We don't have the big Accentures, because they also do stuff not related to SAP. These are more the small, nimble, agile partners. And what the cool thing, they all make innovation real, and altogether are 12,000 employees, and they all share the same mindset. And what now happened, I was so really happy about, that they even start working together. Yeah, because there's now an outstanding partner in Melbourne with 70 people working with a partner in Minsk who has certain skills. That means we build up a network of companies who all share the same values. And this is the App House network with 22 globally, and we are announcing now one in South Africa. And then it's also in time when the Decon Festival will be there, a partner. And now we come to design and business. Something that we started many years ago because we saw that we need more, I think, change makers in our customer companies who drive this change within the organizations. And these are typically lonely fighters. And now we said, let's bring these people together that they can learn from each other. And then we started this together with Nestle and with Philips, the design and business community, which is not an SAP thing, which is now, meanwhile, an association. And we have now 5 chapters globally with 150 organizations and companies joining from Israel to South Africa to North America, EMEA, and Brazil. And this is also growing. And now the cool thing is, now we start bringing this even together. This means we have now an App House in South Africa, which is now working with the chapter lead of design and business. And we start connecting the networks. I think it's really exciting to see this network effect, and also now working together with academics. Because, I think if you look at the combination of these networks, it's so powerful. No one network or not one person will be able to really solve it. Because tell you, my vision that I have for the App House network, human-centered innovation in all customer engagements. Sounds simple, but this is 450,000 customers, 20,000 partners, 40,000 people in our field organization, and my team is small. That means, therefore, I think this vision helps us to always think about, how can we work together with the different networks to, over time, by the way, getting back to SAP's mission, help the world run better and improve people's lives. I talked a lot.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much, Andreas, for sharing a little bit about App House Network and so as also about Design at Business Network. I think we can dive right in. I only have one agenda in my list here, and feel free to also have this conversation among yourself to build on it, to also challenge one another and have a conversation. It sounded like, from just the four of you, it was 5 different networks or 5 different ecosystems. My question is there value in bridging all these networks together into a unified and an umbrella of a formal constitution? Yeah, we don't have to need an answer for today, but it's just an opening conversation starter. I just want to hear your thoughts about that.
Any agreement that we design at the end, right?
You have prepared the document already. maybe since I'm representing the youngest of the networks, looking at the others, also looking at ME310 and Sugar and the Alto Design Factory network. About 5 years ago, there was a question for us: why do we start another network? Why do we do something which can we not associate with the other networks? And it looks, and as you heard now, they're very different approaches. And so we were saying, let's build something. Actually, the first idea was to really this kind of umbrella idea, to make a network which is kind of building the bridge between the academics, between the D-schools, this kind of radical institutions, where we have actually, to be honest, we don't have enough of those radical D-school activities as we have it here in Potsdam and at Stanford at very few locations. But if you look at the 25 members now, yes, they're all little plants within a large, grown-up academic structure, which is dealing with the same problems we were discussing since yesterday, the transformation problems which we are seeing in industry. And we need actually more of those. And we thought it would be good to really build something bridging. But then we actually writing the concept for that, we said, oh, that is probably a little bit too big at the beginning. So let's start with the academic arena and let's connect those institutions which are really multi-dimensional, which are reaching out to a lot of different disciplines. And I, on a long run, if you ask me, so what in 5 years from now, so I think it really makes sense to think of a kind of umbrella thing which kind of coordinates those activities. That doesn't mean there are others, the other networks are not existing anymore. I'm a big fan of network of networks, and you were talking about that. That is how you scale and keep the diversity, but keep it in a networked mode. That would be my wish for the future.
I would like to add this. I think in general, if you look at design thinking, yesterday was a little bit fuzzy, yeah, and we start applying it for everything, yeah. I think you need to give also the people and the networks the flexibility to adapt it to their specific need, yeah? And learn and adapt. And I think we need to foster the learning between the different networks, and it's all about the people. Therefore, could be something, yeah. But I think I'm not sure whether we really need it. I think for me it's really more about also trying out different things with a different network, learning, and then letting things flow back. Because honestly, it's more or less a mindset and a different way of working that you can apply to multiple different situations.
Yeah.
Right.
So maybe to add on this as well, and then Christine, maybe you have your opinion too. I just need to look on the screen to see your face.
You are on the bottom here. So.
Here. But I mean, it's an interesting question. And I think what we need to differentiate is if we are talking about a network of networks or building an overarching organization. And I'm a bit very concerned about adding other organizations on top, because organizations usually bring stiffness into a system. And what we have right now is a lot of flexibility in each of those networks. And those flexibilities, they also bring creativity and innovation. So each of the networks, I mean, we are collaborating with each other, we know each other, and we do already stuff with each other. But we find different interpretations, and as you have said, it also depends a bit on the local context or on your general context that you're in. And I think a global organization on top would make that more cumbersome, right? Then there is always one kind of boss or committee or whatever, right? And why should we have that?
Right.
I think we have it already in our tiny networks for good reasons, but I'm not sure if we need a meta network on top. But what I like is the idea that Uli and you both just said is a network of networks. So we as networks, we need to talk with each other, right? We need to be in constant exchange, and it's not so much about agreeing on everything, right? Because maybe Andreas has a good idea, and I may say, oh, Grammy Falk is not agreeing. But you know, this is how innovation happens. Right? It's the potential is in the disagreement, and then the shared or the willingness to understand the other one's opinion. And this we should and foster, and this we should hopefully keep by looking also at Christine, because we also have these debates, or Matteo, I'm not sure where he is. He's now out of the room, but yeah, so we do all these debates, and this is a world that I can imagine to happen in the future.
Right, thank you. Christine, anything to add or disagree on?
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple of points to add. I think you can see within like the Design Factory Global Network, there's 38 design factories, and there's maybe 8 or so of them that are part of the Sugar Network as well. So we've got this overlap, we've already got this sharing, we've got breakout, I guess, networks. So from the Design Factory Global Network, there's also some people that, hey, we're interested in doing radical innovation for deep technology, working with science, deep technology and fundamental science. So the Design Factory I mentioned earlier at CERN, there's this challenge-based innovation program that's sort of spun out of that as well. And it still connects in with the Design Factory network. The colleague that Falk just mentioned, Matteo, he's also in the he's part of the Design Factory network, part of Sugar, part of CBI. So we are seeing all of these overlaps, and it comes down to slight differences in what we're trying to achieve. So the stuff with CERN, deep technology, radical innovation, working with fundamental science. In Sugar, we're working with corporations. We've got a specific pedagogy that we follow over 7 months. We've got different missions and challenges and prompts, and having this cross-cultural viewpoint that comes together in distributed teams is really key and part of that education process. So I think if we had if we all melded into one big network, it would be like saying one size fits all, and it doesn't. You know, we all have. So if we took a shirt, one size fits all with the shirt, it doesn't. When you're in Melbourne this time of the year, you might need to be wearing more than just a shirt and have your jacket on because of the context at the moment. It's cold, it's different. You're in another place of the world, you need a different attire, but also different sizes fit in different ways. So I think it's like saying, one shirt, one size fits all, and it doesn't. There should be multiple shirts, but we're all like wearing shirts.
Christine, when I hear the conversation about the network and when I think about it, right, I'm thinking of one network having very similar and very like-minded people who share the same value, who believe in a certain way of approaches, versus having people coming in to the network and having very different thoughts, perspective. So on one hand, it sounded like a network is to a certain degree, is design thinking. There might be shared value, but the way of looking at process is very one-dimensional because you don't have other aspects coming in. And I can say that because I am a fool. I did that before. Right? I came from D-School Malaysia. D-School Malaysia had this process. And then when I moved to Belgium, I learned a different approach to design thinking, the double diamond, the 6-step process by D-School in Germany. And I struggle because in Malaysia, I was so in that bubble of, that 5-step, and this is the way to do it. So then, anyway, let's digress with that. So I see the value in having that, but let's talk about the network of networks, right? What are the struggles of doing that more often today? Because I see that there are already some collaborations happening right now. How can we elevate that to another level so that this cross-pollination or different thoughts, perspective of the same topic can be shared and have discourse within?
I can start. I think step number 1 is awareness. I think what we already now do is making aware about that these networks exist.
Yeah.
Then I think it's really about trying to apply it, because what I see is networks are typically in different regions, and then these are at different maturity levels. Yeah, if you're in the beginning phase, yeah, first of all you need to get your stuff working, and then you can start talking with others. I think getting awareness about what the networks can do, and probably even having also. And I like the idea, probably even that the people who lead the network somehow regularly, somehow, I don't know, once a year, somehow really come together and share stuff. You don't need to have an organization for doing this, but yeah, it's a little bit my point of view. Awareness, and then seeing, okay, what makes sense. Because I think things will naturally happen. Because we have talented people in all organizations, and if there is a collaboration possible, they will find it, and they will just make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And you also you mentioned already that there are in your network factory or some on the sugar network and vice versa, and it's the same with us.
Maybe to add, I completely agree, Andreas. What I would like to add, and I saw that happen already partially, is penetration through the networks. So, for example, Laura Ferreira, she worked then for the Business Design Network quite a lot, and she worked previously in the sugar community and then at the design factory in Porto. So she moved from station to station to station, and she were basically skipping or building bridges and skipping chasms. And I think this is most probably the most difficult part, at least from my point of view, to enable people to move from different stations, like you did, right? Belgium, Germany, Malaysia. And this makes you up as a person and makes you basically an expert by the end of the day. But it also helps the network to get enough provocation. I mean, when you most probably joined the German community, right, you ask a lot of questions.
Yep.
Not because you wanted to make trouble, so to say, but because you try to understand your own universe, right? And I'm sure the German community were not just looking at you as a troublemaker, but they thought, okay, why are you asking those questions, right? And wow, some of those questions or proposals are really good, and this is helping the other network to improve and to gain benefits out of this. So therefore, what you said, I would just add the penetration aspect. And I mean, Uli, the D-schools, etc., they are also doing it with the coach exchange, for example.
Yeah, for example, that was one of the first activities we tried to do between the different organizations, to do coaches exchange program. We are thinking of a student exchange program also between the different D-school environments, but we are not that far yet, because that is really a tricky thing to handle. And I would like to add to what you two are saying. I think we need probably these kind of mutual multilateral invitations as we are doing it here. So this kind of bringing together, yes, we know each other. So there is, but there's another network we don't know of yet. Yeah. So to make aware, get on one hand the awareness, on the other hand this the permanent invitation also to be a part of that, and there is a lot of overlap also with the GDTA members who are part of the Sugar Network. They're not so I think there is a somehow a borderline, a natural borderline between what is interesting in business and there is a different kind of interest, there's a different kind of maturity and also necessities compared to the academic field. But even there, since for me the D-School was always a place where learning and working is highly, densely connected, since we are doing everything what we're doing is based on projects together with partners, and most of the time they're coming out of the industry. So industry is not far away from us, and that was one of the reasons we thought from the beginning that we should kind of bring those together. But I see the different approaches, and also with the Design Factory network, which was always for me a big, what Aalto did as a university to bring together 3 universities like 15 years ago or so, and then give birth to a Design Factory and a startup sauna and all kinds of crazy stuff at that time. That was so inspiring to me. You know, that was before I was being at the D-School. You know, it was lots of years ago.
I want to comment to this one also that yes, somehow there's a little bit of border between it, but you know, business need new talent, and we need talent who already comes with the mindset. Therefore, it's so important. And on the other side, also we need the research that's coming from academia that we can try to apply into our businesses. And for sure, not everything will be now possible because of budget and whatever. But I think exactly this exchange, and this is a great opportunity to bring the different things together. Therefore, for me, it's not such a strict border. Yes, a little bit different goals, but I think that it's a win-win situation from my point of view. And that's the reason why we also, coming back to Cape Town, we also now make the connection between our new partner, Design at Business, and the D-School from the beginning on when we started, because exactly of that.
Yeah. Right. I also like to hear Christine as well on the thoughts, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, thank you. I think an interesting point that's somewhat come up is the motivation to work together, to collaborate and to interact as a network. So are we wanting to be more connected, to be inspired, you know, to be challenged in the way that we see things, the diversity aspect, or is it really to collaborate and work on something and to have greater impact? So to collaborate, to compete, to have collective, to be working towards a collective goal, a collective outcome. So I think the motivation as to why we would interact can also shape how, and shared motivations can shape how this could scale further, networks of networks. Also, something that was quite interesting, I think, that came up was, you know, the value of making the connection. So people meeting and having that open invitation. So it's fantastic. I'm here, I'm online, I'm connecting in, and I'm extraordinarily grateful for that. But if I hadn't had face-to-face contact with colleagues in the past, there probably wouldn't be that relationship, that trust, that desire to continue exchanging. So the nature of the type of interactions and the trust that people have in each other, coming back to the people that making things happen, I think is also really important in terms of scaling network connectivity.
Right, thank you. Thank you, Christine.
Maybe I can add what Christine said, because especially the part of how we interact with each other, because at the current moment we believe that we can virtualize everything. We just do it online. And maybe it sounds a bit odd and not trendy, but I strongly believe that we need to get back somehow, at least a bit more, back to reality and this physicality. So seeing each other, touching each other. I mean, Christine, we met the last time, many years ago, right? 2019, because of the COVID.
Yeah.
And I mean, we know each other since many more years, and that's the reason why we can collaborate and still talk with each other online. But I think the physical interaction hopefully becomes more important again. Not saying that we need to travel as much as we did in the past, right? I think the ecological aspect also should be on our mind. But in order to collaborate with each other, and therefore such a conference is a great possibility, even if we know each other, to get in touch with each other again, right? And to hang around just for a few minutes or hours, and then, to get more energy on new projects.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I
that
have
was
so much FOMO that I'm not there. Like, I'm missing out on all of these side conversations and all these other sessions.
But
and
we are changing
I'm
this
going to be
soon.
going to bed when everything's kicking off, you know? Like, I've got massive FOMO.
that we did the last the 2 years of our yearly conferences we had to do completely online, completely digital, and that I remember very well the first one. That was that was really a great experience, because that was the first one we did really virtual, and we could have people from all over the world, and they stayed for 12 hours, and we could do a 12-hour conference around the globe, which was also, so we could invite people from Asia first and then walk around the globe. It was an incredible experience for us. The second year was already like, would be great to meet again physically. And now this year, I'm so happy that in October we can really do it physically again. And I'm also happy at that conference here. You would imagine there is, I think it's half physical, non-physical participants. And the only bad thing is we only see a very small portion of the non-physical participants here, which means it's just one person. Which also means, we are living in times where, yes, we have tons of great technology for making things digital, but really, if you want to have that experience of doing something on eye level with a group of people, of several hundred people, is really, really tricky. We are not there yet. And
Cool. Thank you. I guess we would like to also open up this time now for the floor. If you have any comments or questions for the panels, you can also raise your hands. Yes, we have one at the gentleman behind.
wait for the microphone for our virtual participants.
Hello. Also virtual participants. Peter, Educrafter, Finland. Well, Estonia as well. Why do you talk about networks and not ecosystems, and specifically learning ecosystems? And why is a network of networks organization on top? Can it be underneath, supporting?
Thank you.
Fully, actually, Peter, I fully agree. Ecosystem is the term we are trying to establish here at the HPI also. The kind of innovation ecosystem. We don't have a Falk, we are working on the name together with Thong, and but it will not be kind of design thinking ecosystem. It will be more or less the kind of innovation ecosystem for that small campus here. And for sure, I would fully agree. If there is an overarching, it could be an underarching thing. It could be. It's actually the glue between the networks. Somehow I see it like, and it's maybe a sparkling glue between the networks.
Yeah, I think I would agree what Uli just said. I mean, it depends a bit on the definition of a network and the ecosystem, but for my own perspective, an ecosystem usually consists of different stakeholders. Sure, each network has already some different stakeholders included. Nevertheless, as Jen already said, they're quite homogeneous at the current moment, and therefore I like this visual that you just said, that the ecosystem is the glue between the networks, right? And therefore I think nothing speaks against it, right? But maybe we're not mature enough, and this is one of the next peaks that we need to climb, right?
This is, I mean, I work with ecosystems a fair amount, and we talk about networks are passive and ecosystems are active. So that's kind of the, I mean, of course networks are active as well, but when you get to that point that actually all the actors see that they are part and actively kind of work it forward, and then the glue, interoperability. So this is what we see. So how can we work together? What are the processes and what are the standards and all of that? that makes it able for us to work together. So that's the kind of glue underneath, in a sense, as well. And this is, I would say, work that is starting on a global level for these sectors. Thank you.
Love it. Thank you.
But maybe just to add, because I heard the word standard, you know,
We're talking about that later.
you know, in my in my previous life, I was very much addicted to controlling and to standards, and because I made my PhD also in that field. But change can happen also to people like me, and you know, even I'm believing in standards. I still also believe that in the future, not everything can be standardized. And when we are talking about networks, ecosystems, at least on a personal level and interpersonal level, it is effort, always. And it is hard, always. And it's just part of us, right? No matter how much we want to standardize or how much we can standardize, networking, ecosystem, or being an ecosystem partner is a hard job. And it doesn't come for granted.
So then I'll add the machine. Unfortunately, the machine still needs the standards to be able to help us. And I think this is kind of where our networks and ecosystems are going, human-machine ecosystems. And then, I'm sorry, but we still need standards for these things to be able to work somehow together.
Okay, I'm not exactly knowing in what direction you are referring to, but just maybe a brief answer, at least from my point of view. Sure, machines invading more and more into our own lives. And I think what we as humans need to learn is to give up some of the tasks to machines, but there are some superior things that humans can still do much better than machines. And this is at least at the current moment. No, this is creative talk.
Art.
Yeah, for example. It's
Are you
creativity. Sure.
It's really, really interesting if you Google what the machines do today. I mean, writing texts, creating visual arts, creating music, and it's really very hard to say, is it human-made or is it machine-made? We're getting into very, very interesting kind of areas here.
Absolutely.
I'll stop now because I'll go on forever.
Yes. Also, because we have a question from the online audience, we don't want to miss out on that. So a question from Linda. How can educators and design thinking practitioners learn about the different networks that are available? Is there a place for an integrated communication channel?
That's a very good question. I think you prepared some slides with the links to the different networks.
Actually, we have some slides, and there are people working very hard to get the slides done in time here. Lisa, for example, but we just have one screen here. I'm not sure if we can slide. But actually, yeah, she's pointing to the right thing. So there, you have to go online, you have to check out the Sugar network, you have to check out all the different networks, because there is no overarching, there is no...
We have the GDTA slide.
There's a GDTA slide, yeah. So you can go to gdta.org. But I think what we should do here at the end of the conference, we should bring on all the links to the different networks here on our website here and put it on.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right, thanks,
Very
Linda,
good
for bringing up that question. Good question. Great. So, a final few more minutes. Any final thoughts or comments from the... Yes, please.
Can I speak like this? Or?
No, with the microphone.
Okay, my name is Wolf, and first I say welcome to those who are not here on stage right now, because yesterday I tried to be online with you, and it was a total failure. So
really,
but it's maybe just because of me. So don't worry, I'm not blaming anybody. But I'm very happy here to be here today, and it's such a pleasure, I have to say, because to see you all back here in real. This brings me to an interesting thought, because many years ago, I'm a journalist, and many years ago I wrote an article about the CeBIT show, And I was invited by the head of CeBIT to explain the article. And half a year, I was the strategic advisor for CeBIT. So what does that mean? You have to build up a reputation for what you say, and you have to build up the excellence to defend the reputation in the conflicts of your thoughts. And that's exactly what you said. It's the difference that makes you work and that makes you grow. And that's why I left CeBIT in 2014, because I wrote another article, but this was internal and everybody thought I'm nuts. So I left CeBIT, and CeBIT got down 5 years later, not because of the article, but because we didn't discuss in the method which has been presented by you today. So I think it is so important to do these things at the right moment and not just to eliminate anything, but really to do it slowly and decently and with all the honor I owe to your work. So the last thing I have to say, and that's a question in the end. When you do all these things saying it's nice to be back here as a person, we are longing for something. And as the oldest guy here in the group, I can say we are longing something which we have lost in the analog times. And when I was at CeBIT, I had a long conversation with Mr. de Maizière, who was responsible for the digitization of this German country. And he asked me, what finally can I do to preserve our values in the analog times in this digital world like design thinking? And I say, you have to destroy everything. Okay, I stayed in Japan for a long time. And then he said, why do I have to destroy? And my answer was, because we have to reinvent our analog capacities in the digital world. And this is, I think, your task. And I think this is what you have to do as the network of the networks, not just to have a glow, shiny pattern, but really to make us survive with our potential analog qualities in this digital world. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you.
A very, very good comment and feedback, and also question. I think I want to pick up on your one topic is it takes time. And the biggest challenge in large organizations is the time and getting the sponsorship. Therefore, for us, we had ups and downs, people changing, new board members, different priorities. And honestly, still, I think the reason why design thinking is still on vogue at SAP is because of Hasso Plattner. Yeah? Imagine if he wouldn't have been there, I'm not sure where I would stand now here. Yeah? Because you
Me neither.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah. But I think it's really about it's about really the executive buy-in and giving it time and learning. Honestly, we don't do now any more design thing as we did now 2004 and 5. We evolved over time. Yeah. And I think this learning thing is a key element you have to get into the organizations. Therefore, I think giving time, that's one of the biggest challenges that you face in large organizations, to really give the team also the possibilities to really develop and learn and adapt it over time. Just want to comment on your...
Sorry.
I think there's
Oh, yes, another one? Yes, maybe one final question. Yes, go ahead.
Not on? Yes, it is. I'm Janice Macmillan from Cape Town, South Africa, just moving into the design thinking field. So I'm going to ask questions. One question that might just be a naive one, but I'm just wondering whether, in terms of networks, whether if you talk of kind of bricks and mortar, you know, you've got the mortar between the bricks that actually kind of builds a building. So what is the mortar? And I'm wondering whether it isn't a common set of questions that a network generates. Questions about the world, about inequality, about justice, about the world that we live in. And I think COVID has really exposed the world and brought us together in some ways. And I'm wondering whether, instead of thinking of a network of networks, or whether it's the top or the bottom, could there not be a common set? There's already seemingly a common set of values, I would argue, that design thinking. What about a common set of questions about the world and about how design thinking can actually contribute in very different contexts? This is the first thing. And then the second thing is, where do the questions need to come from? Do they need to be coming from the global north together with the global south? How do we really talk about those very, very complex issues? And I'm asking this naively as a sociologist moving into the design thinking field. But I think questions are often kind of a really important way to engage in different kinds of conversations.
Agree. I think we all have to agree, right? Being design thinkers, it's always good to ask the right question, right? So what are your thoughts on the comment?
So maybe we need to think first before we give an answer. I mean, so first of all, I like the idea with the question, but I mean, I'm not sure if there is a fixed set of questions. I think it will need to evolve and need to change over the minutes and years, etc. So, but maybe it's a good idea to have to work on that together, to articulate the values that we have and a set of questions that we want to answer in the future, and it could then also reflect and change, or we could reflect our changing priorities maybe also in such questions. Yeah.
Maybe just you're addressing the big challenges we are seeing right now, and what we did when the SDG were announced, we were immediately saying, so this is our framework we are working in, and this is what is SDG. It's 17 big questions and some ideas to solve those big challenges, and we are in that framework. And we, as the D-School here in Potsdam, we try to really make all people aware, also our project partners, that there is a larger framework. There are larger questions than to make money with the next new product or so. And they should, this new product should probably contribute to solve the larger questions. And that is how we try to frame that. And that is why a global network really can help these kind of activities, because it looks from different perspectives, from different cultural perspectives, which we can't do from Germany alone, and also not from South Africa alone. You know?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I would like to also hand the time to Christine as well, if you'd like to add on it, to build on the comments as well.
Yeah, just very briefly, I think the questions could potentially be framed as a vision or a mission, and something that then is shared and brings people together. So it's a curiosity or an objective. It's something that's guiding, like the question guides your activity. It guides what your type of impact you're seeking to have. So there might be different ways of framing questions into visions and missions, and evolving questions, I think, as well. So I know that, within sugar, for example, we're wanting to educate the next generation of innovators, but we also want them to be responsible innovators. And what will they be responsible to? They're responsible to society, to the planet, and maybe it's even beyond that as well. So how do we have universally responsible innovators? So I think it evolves, and it may change, and the questions that prompt that will evolve over time as well.
Well, it has been very insightful to have this conversation. Love that, we talk about whether the need to unify them, and then we talk about the network of networks, the importance of getting connected with one another, and also thinking about questions, maybe. These are potentially a few next steps, right? I think the networks and network of networks can come together and start thinking about it. All right, so speaking of network, how many of you are hungry? Maybe now it's a good time to have lunch and network with someone else. So before we go for lunch, please help me to say a big thank you to our panelists. Thank you so much for the insights. Thank you, Christine.
But also to the moderator.
Yes.
You asked a good question.
Thank you. So now, as we feast over lunch to feed our belly, we will also have an opportunity to digest what we have just heard until now. So food is served outside, if I remember correctly, outside and inside the bistro. Please get to know someone, and we will resume back here at 2 o'clock sharp. Thank you. you.